The Oldsmobile Toronado smelled like bourbon and bad intentions. Vera noticed it the moment Dale climbed back in from the filling station outside Carthage, that sweet rotten smell riding his collar, soaked into the wool of his sport coat the way only 3 or 4 drinks can manage before noon. She said nothing. She had learned in 4 years of marriage that silence was the safest country she could inhabit. The highway unreeled ahead of them, Route 9, 2 lanes of cracked blacktop running flat and indifferent through the Texas hill country, the scrub brush gone gray-green in the August heat, the sky a white so bright it hurt the eyes. Vera kept her hands folded over the hard, round planet of her belly. 7 months, maybe closer to 7.5. The baby kicked sometimes when she tensed up. She was tensing up now. "I told you to leave the talking to me," Dale said. His voice had that particular quiet to it, the quiet before the storm. He'd used the same voice when he'd gone for her wrist in the kitchen last March. Same register, same deadly calm. "Your mother opens her mouth at Christmas dinner again. That's the last Christmas we spend in that house. I mean it." "Dale, I didn't say anything. You didn't have to, the look on your face." He took one hand off the wheel of the Toronado, a big-bodied car, Rocket V8, 68 model in burgundy mist, the kind of car a man bought to announce himself. He tapped the dashboard with 2 fingers. "That look you get." Vera turned toward the passenger window. Mesquite trees, a rusted barbed wire fence, a hawk sitting perfectly still on a fence post like a bad omen somebody had nailed there for a reason. The baby shifted. A heel, or maybe a fist, pressed upward beneath her ribs and she breathed through it. They rode in silence for a mile, 2 miles. She could hear the AM radio underneath it all, a Merle Haggard song gone tiny and tinny through the single speaker, and the hum of the tires and the sound of Dale thinking. His thinking always had a sound, a jaw muscle working, fingers tapping a syncopated, agitated rhythm on the steering wheel. "Pull over," she said quietly. "I need a minute. The heat, we're not stopping." "Dale, I feel sick." The baby, he moved so fast the purse in her lap hit the floorboard. His right hand came across and found the door handle, and for one terrible suspended second Vera thought the door was going to open outward while they were still moving at 60 miles an hour. But he braked hard, the Toronado fishtailing slightly on the gravel shoulder, the tires spitting dust and pebble, and then the door swung open and his other hand found her arm. Not to hurt her, not yet, but to move her, to remove her from his immediate vicinity the way a man removes an object that has ceased to be useful. "Get out. Dale, get out." She got out. What else could she do? She was 7 months pregnant on a highway in August with no gas station visible in either direction, and a husband who was drunk and angrier than she'd seen him in months. The shoulder of the road was caliche and loose gravel, white and blinding in the heat, and she stood on it with her hands cradling her belly and watched the Toronado's door swing shut and the brake lights cut off, the car beginning to pull forward, Dale's head straight and rigid behind the glass. He was going to drive away. He'd done it once before, left her in the parking lot of a grocery store for 2 hours to teach her something she no longer remembered needing to learn. He would drive down the highway a 1/4 mile and then stop and wait, smoking one of his Pall Malls, watching her in the rearview mirror, small and ruined looking against all that white distance. She already felt the sun on the back of her neck, already felt the first tremor of real fear, not for herself, not entirely, but for the weight she carried, the weight that kicked and turned and needed water and needed shade and needed her heart rate to stop climbing. Then the lights came on. They came from nowhere and everywhere at once, red and blue, strobing against the white caliche and the gray-green brush, painting the whole desolate stretch of Route 9 in the colors of consequence. The patrol car had been sitting 100 yards back on a dirt access road, half hidden by a stand of cedar elm, and now it was out and moving, the siren giving one short authoritative bark, the kind that means stop this vehicle and stop it now. Dale stopped. Vera stood on the shoulder with her hands on her belly and watched the beige Plymouth Fury roll past her at a slow crawl, the deputy's window down, and she saw the driver's eyes find her, just for a moment before the car moved on and pulled up behind the Toronado. She saw the eyes. That was the thing she would remember. Not the lights, not the siren. The eyes. They were the color of creek water in November, and they were not surprised by anything they saw. Sheriff Cal Miller had been running this county since 1961. Before that, he'd carried an M1 Garand through the Chasen Reservoir in winter temperatures that froze the oil in a man's rifle and the tears on his face before they could fall. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. He climbed out of the fury with the unhurried economy of a man who has already decided how this ends, and he put his hat on with both hands, settling it level, and he walked to the driver's side of the Toronado like he was walking to the mailbox. Dale already had his window down. He was smiling. He had that kind of face, handsome in an assembled way, square jaw, good hair swept back with Brill cream, the smile of a man who has bought his way out of rooms before and intends to do it again. "Afternoon, officer. Just a little domestic disagreement. My wife needed some air, license, and registration." Sheriff Miller said it the way a stone wall is a stone wall. Dale's smile recalibrated slightly. "Now listen, I understand how this looks. I know how it looks." The sheriff's voice was low and even. "License. Registration." Vera had begun to walk toward the cars. Her ankles were swollen in the heat and the gravel was uncertain under her flats, but she walked with her chin up because there was nothing left to do but move toward the one solid thing visible in all that flat blazing landscape. A highway patrol car, a man with a badge and 40 years of hard living in his face. Sheriff Miller glanced at her once, assessed her in the way a field medic assesses a situation efficiently, without sentiment, and then looked back at Dale. "Step out of the vehicle, sir. Now hold on just a minute. I won't be asking again." Dale got out. He was taller than the sheriff by 2 inches, and he used those inches, squaring his shoulders, doing the thing men like Dale always did when cornered, going bigger, going louder inside themselves even when they had the sense to stay quiet on the outside. He handed over his license. The sheriff looked at it for a long time, longer than necessary. "Mr. Whitfield," he handed it back without looking up. "You want to tell me what a pregnant woman is doing standing on the shoulder of a federal highway in August? She wanted air, like I said. She gets overheated. The doctor told her, the doctor." Sheriff Miller finally looked up. He looked at Dale Whitfield the way you look at something you found in a trap, acknowledging its capacity for harm while remaining entirely unmoved by it. "Come around here." He said it quietly, and he walked toward the back of the Toronado, and Dale followed because men like Dale cannot help but follow authority when it moves with that particular kind of certainty. It confuses something animal in them. Vera had reached the patrol car. She stopped and held the warm metal of the door panel and breathed. The sheriff stood at the rear of the Toronado for a moment, studying the license plate, saying nothing. Then, "You're going to sit in the back of my vehicle, Mr. Whitfield. You're going to sit there while I see to your wife and call county medical for a welfare check." He paused. "And if I find one mark on that woman, you'll be explaining yourself to a judge before sundown." Dale Whitfield opened his mouth. "Get in the car." No louder than before, but something in the timbre of it, something iron and ancient and completely without mercy, made Dale's mouth close again. The door of the Fury shut behind him with a sound like a vault ceiling. Sheriff Miller walked to Vera. He took his hat off. He said quietly, "Ma'am, is the baby moving?" And Vera Whitfield, who had not cried once since morning, since before the filling station outside Carthage, since before the bourbon smell and the white highway and the terrible open door, felt her eyes fill and said, "Yes, yes, she's moving." "Good." He nodded once, put his hat back on. "Let's get you somewhere cool." There is a kind of mercy that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with speeches or apologies or promises of how things will be different. It arrives in the form of a beige Plymouth Fury on a 2-lane road in August. It arrives wearing a flat-brimmed hat and carrying 30 years of knowing the difference between a man who makes mistakes and a man who has decided other people will pay for them. The difference matters. It has always mattered. Vera was taken to the home of a deaconess named Ruth Holloway, 3 miles down the road, where there was shade and cold water and a telephone. Dale Whitfield was transported to the Carthage County Jail and charged with criminal endangerment and reckless conduct. The Toronado sat on the shoulder of Route 9 until evening, burgundy mist going dark in the long amber light, the radio still playing to nobody at all. If you are living inside a house that has become something you are afraid of, there is still a road out. Tell your pastor, tell your neighbor, tell the woman at the diner counter. The lines of help are there, landlines, front desks, people willing to make a call on your behalf. You are not alone on that highway. Help is never as far as it feels.